Welcome to the tent squaring and pre-staking procedure tutorial. A tent squaring procedure is performed at the site where pole and tension tents are to be installed. Tent squaring saves time during installation, ensures that the tent is properly tensioned, and increases installer safety by ensuring that the marked underground utilities are not hit by stakes. A properly squared tent will have 4 corners set at 90 degrees. An improperly squared tent will form a parallelogram, whereas some of the angles will be less than 90 degrees and some angles greater than 90 degrees. This will affect the performance of the tent fabric as well as its fitting, causing water pocketing when the tent is installed in the rain. The square of the tent can be determined by using the Pythagorean theorem, where A signifies the length of the tent, B signifies the width of the tent, and C signifies the diagonal dimension across the tent from 2 opposite corners. This equation, A squared plus B squared equals C squared, will give the C diagonal dimension. An easier way to calculate this dimension is by using a squaring guide provided by Celina. With this guide, you can determine the length of the tent and the width of the tent. For this video, a 40-foot by 100-foot classic pole tent will be demonstrated. If the perimeter of the tent is being squared, the A, or tent length measurement, is 100 feet. The B, or tent width measurement, is 40 feet. The C, or tent diagonal measurement, is 107 feet and 8 inches. Initially, the stake lines of the tent will be squared. After the stake lines are squared, the perimeter of the tent will be set. The installer must specify the stake line distance away from the tent perimeter. Stake line distances depend on the tent style and eave height. The eave height is determined by the height of the side poles being used. Generally, the higher the eave height, the further the stake line will be set away from the tent perimeter. Keep in mind that the stake lines add to the footprint or total area required for the installation. For example, if a 5-foot stake line is required for the 40 by 100 pole tent, the total footprint will be 50 feet by 110 feet. For this demonstration, a 7-foot high side pole will be used, creating a 7-foot heave height. Therefore, the stake line will be set 5 feet out from the perimeter of the tent. If an 8-foot high side pole is used, the stake line would be set 6 feet out from the perimeter of the tent. Again, if the perimeter of the tent was being squared, the dimension would be 40 feet by 100 feet. In this video, the stake lines will be squared. With the 5-foot stake line, the measurement of the tent will be 50 feet by 110 feet, with a diagonal dimension of 120 feet and 10 inches. The tools required for tent squaring are 2 300-foot measuring tapes, 4 spikes, screwdrivers or awls, masonry string, white marking paint. When possible, choose an installation site that is elevated, flat, level, and free from overhead and underground obstructions. Prior to installation, call the local utility locating service and have all utilities located and marked. Utility locating is the installer's responsibility to ensure a safe installation. This chart shows the industry standard colors for marking utilities. A tent installer should never use these colors for marking. Always use white marking paint for tent squaring and layout. Arrange the tent to avoid all utilities at the installation site. When squaring a 40-foot by 100-foot pole tent, begin by laying out the first 40-foot side or width side of the tent. To begin, insert a spike into the ground to signify the first corner. Pin both ends of the tape measures to the ground with the spike. Since the stake lines are being squared, walk 50 feet towards the next corner of the tent. Place the second spike into the ground at the 50-foot mark of the tape measure. Next, walk 110 feet to the opposing corner. With the 50-foot width of the tent added to the 110-foot length of the tent, hold the measuring tape at the 160-foot mark. Using a second measuring tape, measure the diagonal dimension of 120 feet and 10 inches away from the first corner spike location. Place the third spike in the ground where the 120-foot 10-inch mark and the 160-foot mark intersect. This spike locates the third corner of the tent. Pull the second measuring tape out to 160 feet. Wrap both measuring tapes once around the third corner spike. With the second measuring tape, walk to the final corner. The fourth and final corner location is located where the measuring tape reads 110 feet. Pull tight from both directions and place a spike in the ground at this point to signify the corner location. As an optional step, double-check the scoring accuracy by measuring the diagonal dimension of the opposite corners. The stake line perimeter of the 40-foot by 100-foot is now set and ready to be marked. Use the white marking paint to identify all corners and side pole locations. The side pole spacing for this tent is every 10 foot around the perimeter. Remember, the stake line is 5 feet, so the first stake position from every corner will be 5 feet in, and then 10-foot spacing from that position. Using Celina Tent's Layout Handbook, determine how many center poles are required and their locations. For this example, 4 center poles are required. Stretch a measuring tape from the center stake line pole location to the opposite side. Make a white mark every 20 foot to indicate the 4 center pole locations. Again, remember the stake line is 5 foot, so the first center pole mark will be 25 feet in and 20 foot spacing from that point. Once the stake locations of the tent are marked, measure in 5 foot from each corner to set the perimeter of the tent. Stretch a masonry string around the perimeter of the tent to signify the tent top location. Be sure that the perimeter and the stake locations will avoid all underground utilities. Pre-staking and the tent installation process may now begin. Check out Celina's other videos on installation instructions and procedures. For more information or to order online, please visit our website at gettent.com.